From Bossier City, Louisiana, this is the Grouch and the Brainstorm. What episode is it, Matt?
Episode 9.
Season 2,
Season
episode
2.
9. Matt came prepared this week.
Look, I'm on it.
About time.
He must have got his Spotify membership updated.
I'm on it. I'm on it, man.
Or the radio started
First
working
year,
in his
I didn't even
truck.
know this was a podcast. I just thought we were hanging out. So I didn't realize we were tracking these.
Haven't quite made a year yet.
Delete some of those.
We will actually make a year in May. I
In
believe
May,
the
okay.
5th.
Really?
What is your birthday?
May 6th.
May 6th. I think May 5th was our first episode. I may be wrong on that. I might.
You are, because we celebrated Ben and Chris C's birthdays of 1 year,
In there.
and they're May 1st.
Oh, yeah. I guess it was before May 1st then. So
Wow.
I'm Mike. I'm joined today with Matt.
Hey, guys.
I got Jill.
Hey, guys.
I got Kyle.
Hello.
And Travis.
Howdy.
And Kyle and Travis came back again this week. They're going to share a little of their experience, strength, and hope. But before we do that, we're gonna get to know each other. How about that, Matt? No, just kidding. Take your hand off my
Getting
knee.
to know.
So, Jill, how are the pigs?
Pigs are great.
Pigs doing good?
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Yeah. I thought whenever I came in last time, I thought I saw a cage out front, and I was worried about them.
That's just me procrastinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to clean it out.
Yeah. It's been a whole week. It's still there.
It's been
I'm just
longer than a week. Hey, the thing is, it was out there by the pig pen. It's now in the front yard near the water hose.
Progress.
that happens.
That's right.
That happens. And Matt, everything going good with you?
Everything's good, man. Just rolling along, catching a few fish, cutting grass,
It's about that time.
rehabbing. It's about that time. Been doing pretty good on that here lately. Got to see the little grandbaby the other day for a little while. He's off the chain.
Aw.
So, yeah, he's a cute little dude, man. So,
Travis, how about you? What's going on with you, man?
Things are just the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I've reestablished communication with my daughters and seen them several times over the past 2 months.
Cool. That's always,
Fabulous.
yeah. Yeah, it's good to hear that stuff. Kyle, how about you? Bud?
Life is good, man. I got 2 kids, 2 boys, 16 and 13. So we always got something going on,
Yeah.
chaos of some sort. But life is good, man. It's good to be a dad again.
Do you live here, Kyle? In this
Yeah, I live in Bossier City.
In Bossier.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah. So I guess all of us live in Bossier City. Well, all of y'all live in. I used to live in Bossier City. So it's kind of hard to find sometimes when you get a group together. Somebody's from Shreveport. Somebody lives in Shreveport. It's not all Bossier folks. So I'm a former Bossier folk. I live in Fort
I'm
Worth.
former Shreveport. I lived in Shreveport for years and years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It run you out.
Yeah, sure did.
Run you out of town.
Yep.
Ran you out here to the farm. Mm-hmm. with the pigs. Oh, Jill, chickens. Getting chickens.
Yeah, chickens are upcoming. I have gotten my garden put in, so I will be planting vegetables and herbs today.
Herbs. And Matt had a great idea about turning a table upside down and using the box part as a herb garden.
yeah, that's what I do. Come up with brilliant
yeah,
ideas.
Yeah.
Sass my sponsor.
You ought to see what he can do with an old pallet.
I've got 3 in the backyard.
Believe it or not, I built deer stands for years out of pallets.
Yeah, I believe that.
They look like garbage.
Yeah, I can believe that.
I put a actual recliner in a deer stand built on a pallet, and then I never shot a deer because I would sleep every time. I was like, why did I do this? I built it into the deal,
You live in the South Shore of New Orleans, and you'd be surprised what you see people do with pallets.
Oh yeah, they're handy, man.
Yeah, they really are, which is why I don't understand why we don't use them more often. So, not a lot going on. Like Matt said, it's about time to go fishing. I brought my boat from over here over to the Fort Worth area, and so me and my son got reassigned to another store a little closer to his house. So we're gonna be able to go fishing and spend some time together. He's got a baby on the way. My daughter's got a baby on the way. They've already got kids, so before you know it, it'll be a whole little family thing going. And so I'll try to get some fishing in that way. Once the babies are born, I can avoid them at all costs. won't have to go over there too much. I'm just kidding.
I know. I was like,
When I leave
sure,
here, my
Mike.
daughter actually lives about 3 minutes from here in Legacy subdivision. So when I leave here today, I'll run over there and say hi to her. My
That's not even 3 minutes.
Probably not. Probably not 3 minutes from here.
Not the way Mike drives.
Well, we could talk about the issues I'm having with Turo and my other car, but I'm in a Nissan today, so it may not travel as fast as my other vehicle. So, but anyway, we talked about on the last episode expectations, right? And I guess if we were going to deep dive into that, and we did a little bit, we kind of got off into that other realm of things to talk about. But when it comes to expectations, when we don't get what we wanted, right, or we don't get what we think we should deserve or think we should have, or we're not where we're at, we have to deal with disappointment. We have to deal with grief whenever someone passes away in the program or in our family or in our life. We've all had that happen in recovery. Most of us, anyway, have had someone pass away. We've had to deal with disappointment. We've had to deal with grief. We've had to deal with our expectations not being met. We might even had to deal with divorce. Travis brought up a great point with family, and sometimes we just don't talk for a long time, and we get those issues ironed out, and whatever happens with those. And it's hard sometimes to think about gratitude, and the subject of gratitude. You go to any AA meeting, and you're gonna, if you spend a good 2 weeks going to a meeting every day, you're probably gonna run into a gratitude meeting. I used to hate them. I couldn't stand birthday meetings. I couldn't stand promise meetings, and I couldn't stand gratitude meetings. I just couldn't. I felt like that's what these bastards wanted to talk about when they just ran out of stuff to talk about, But this gratitude subject really does tie into the expectation subject. Perhaps we have a newcomer out there listening, and maybe the expectation thing, maybe somebody just got a year. We talked about a lot of folks on the last episode just got a year. And maybe their life isn't where they think it should be, right? And so I can only talk from my experience. But when I look back after a year, I realized I wasn't shaking anymore. Physically, I didn't shake anymore like I used to. I didn't wake up in a pool of sweat. I ate normally. It wasn't once every 2 or 3 days. I drank liquid and didn't have to, I don't know about any of y'all, but I would get so dehydrated. I could drink a gallon of water and probably not go to the bathroom for, I don't know, a day. That's just how dehydrated my body was, all of those things, But I even though I noticed those changes, it was hard to be grateful because I just wasn't where I'm at. It just wasn't. And we're going to talk about, because I know Travis been around a while, Jill's been around, a while, but gratitude being an action word. And you ever heard that before? Gratitude is an action word.
Absolutely.
Now, when you hear that, Travis, what do you think about?
One of the guys that I hung around with in early sobriety always was known for saying, you can tell how grateful I am for something by the way I take care of it. Mm-hmm. And it was the action behind the words, whether it's a relationship or a possession, how I take care of that relationship, how I take care of that possession, how I treat those things is where the gratitude lies.
Yeah, I like that. So, Matt, what do you when you think about that and what Travis just said? What do you think about?
Well, and I think too, this was yesterday morning. As a matter of fact, I got up and worked 2 different jobs going on at the same time, and got up early. I hadn't had much sleep. Was tired, and I was driving down the road, headed to go do the job, and I thought, man, I get to do this. When you get to that point of I get to do something instead of I have to, man, I'm so blown away by just being able to do a lot of the things cool stuff that I just didn't even see myself doing. And I do hear people go, oh man, I got to go to work. Man, I get to go to work. I get to hang out at my club and do things with, I hear people, I got to go to meetings. I get to, I get to go up there. I like to go up there. And for me, that's the gratitude part. It's like I'm getting to do this stuff as opposed to the way I used to be. So that's kind of where I'm at with it,
Jill, what do you think? Do you think? As the zucchini and the
I feel like
hummus
I'm just like
started to get to your
spaced out.
brain.
Yeah, something just changed. You're right. I mean, like gratitude is an action, and it wasn't something that I was raised thinking. That was not a value that was done in my house. My sponsor showed that to me in early sobriety because I was so. I just, again, the expectations, the deluded thinking of I deserved everything, and just constantly being let down and being pissed and angry about my situation. She was like, "You're gonna do a little gratitude list," and I said, "Well, okay." And it was really difficult at first because I really just couldn't think of many things I was grateful for. So it was just things like, my arms are great. I like these.
Grateful for your arms?
Well, I couldn't, like I said, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's all I could really think of at the time. It was very superficial. And I mean, of course that's grown, and that's something that I do every day.
Your arms have grown?
The list.
Oh, okay.
I love practicing gratitude now. And, my first sponsor also would tell me about penny miracles. And those are just little bitty things like finding a $20 bill in your pocket. And I'm like, wow, thanks. I like doing it because it keeps me in that way of thinking. It keeps me happy. It keeps me in hope. And like I said, it's just something that's important. That I have to do because I don't want to go back to that old way of thinking, the doom and gloom, and I start getting into self when I think that way and how things aren't going the way they should be in my life. I'm grateful for learning gratitude. I wake up every day and I do everything, and I'm grateful. I mean, I'm grateful for my job. I love it. I try to do my best and more when I'm there every day. I'm grateful that I have the things I have and the people in my life and just seriously everything. I'm grateful that I have a higher power. I could go on and on and on with gratitude because I have so much now that I didn't have. And most of it has to do with something in the spiritual realm, and things that I've learned about myself, coping skills, and basically all the things I have learned while I've been sober. And maybe that was taught. I don't recall. It just wasn't practiced. And my life has significantly changed since I've learned gratitude. And it's important to me.
So let me ask you this. How's your, and I know the obvious answer, I know. How is your life different now from, let's say, your childhood life?
Not much, to be honest with you. I had a really good younger childhood. I was incredibly happy and free.
Grew up where?
Well, on the farm in Arkansas.
Yes.
And then we moved to Shreveport, then Benton, then to Bossier. But my younger childhood, I was a very happy kid. I don't know. I feel like that again, like childlike and happy and free. I mean, it's just that things went to shit when I was 15. I mean, everything went to shit.
And stayed there for a while, huh?
Till I was about 35.
Yeah.
And there's been some shit in recovery too.
I like the
we were-
smile though.
Well, I mean, that's
Well,
goes along
and-
with the topic.
But this is the
disappointment.
deal. All the letdowns, disappointments, the loss, and all of that have been opportunities for me to grow. And I'm grateful for every single one of them. Mm-hmm. Because now, I don't escape or get high or get drunk when those things happen. I get to work through them and realize, oh, I made it out of that. And thank you, God, because I was able to see something that I couldn't see before. I start to look at patterns in my life and things that I've been doing wrong and fix those. And like I said, that's what I meant when I said learning about me. I mean, my letdowns haven't been that horrible. It's been loss, and I feel like I'm actually, it's in a weird way, like I'm really used to that because I've just lost so many friends in this disease and throughout, since I was a teenager. And, but what was I saying before? Well, shit, I can't remember. I just spaced out. Say no to drugs. They have all been learning opportunities. This is just basically what I'm saying. And I've learned how to deal with things I never used to deal with, and I would suppress and would blow up. And it's forced me to be grateful for the little things, which, like I said, I never was grateful for much. For some reason, I just was so deluded. I thought I deserved all these things that I had. And now, I'll work for stuff. I try to be the best person that I can. And it's just a way of life for me now. I can't go back to the way I used to be and the way I used to think, because that's dire as far as my sobriety is concerned. So I learned pretty early on that gratitude is one of the most important things that I practice in, my sobriety.
Yeah.
Okay.
Grateful for the bad stuff, grateful
Almost
for the
all
good
starts
stuff.
there,
Yeah. And of course, I never used to see that. I never could look at something bad and say, I'm really grateful for that. I just couldn't. And I would use that as just more fuel to my self-pity fire. Mm-hmm. And so now I use it in a different way, not to
evaluate it as far as getting a lesson from
I
it.
use it as a motivation and not as a crutch.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I would have never known that had I gotten sober.
Yeah, it's easy to be grateful for the things that are pleasant, that go our way, that feel good. But to get to true gratification for the bad things that happen in our lives and see what God is course correcting in our lives,
Absolutely.
to get to the other side and go, okay, I see now. That's what that all was about.
Yes.
There's something coming,
We did a reading on that last Sunday, I believe, at the meeting. Noticing the greatness and disappointments today. Basically, is showing gratitude for that. That's almost impossible for me, anyways. If you pull out of Jill's driveway today and have a flat tire right at the end of the driveway, you get pissed off. Now I'm going to be late getting back to. Long story, but you don't realize the wreck you almost got into.
Yeah.
We don't think about that kind of stuff. I never will forget. I was coming back from Monroe one time, coming to Shreveport, and you ever get behind two 18-wheelers that are passing each other? And you're like,
Or not passing each other.
and they're going and I'm just pissed off. And then you get up over a hill, and there's three state troopers facing all different directions, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, they were waiting on me.
Yeah,
if it hadn't
thanks
been for these
God.
trucks.
Something similar happened to me. I was headed to a meeting over at the club and caught a red light, and which was going to make me late, which I can't stand. And light turns green, and I get up to the next intersection, and a wreck just happened.
Yeah, I mean, and it could have been, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
This is maybe me, but I did this the other day with a guy. we're driving through Shreveport, and the light turned yellow way ahead of me, and I surveyed that intersection. There was no other cars around, and I looked at him and I said, I ain't stopping. And we just rolled through the red. He goes, you just flat ran that red light like 5 minutes past it turned red. And I was like, I know. And sometimes I can't help myself, And he's like, I'm not riding with you anymore. So, not that I do it often, but in the right situation, you got to have a little fun. So,
Yeah. Provided you never end up in court over that.
well, I mean,
now you're on recorded.
they got cameras out there now. You got to be careful. But yeah, I mean, you just got to have a little fun. So, scared him to death. So that was good. But I don't know.
Well,
We might need to reevaluate your definition of fun.
I'm always working on stuff.
he's still trying to. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always working on stuff. But
I hope those fish start biting soon.
me too, brother.
'Cause you're,
Me too.
You're scraping the bottom for.
Look,
When you
I
go,
take
when you
entertainment
go
where I
Bo
can
Luke
get it.
Duke out there on this law,
Hey,
Right, he's like, I'm grateful for running red lights.
I was sitting in
like
the
lamp.
club a couple of I was sitting in the club a couple of years ago, and a guy I knew was coming in, and he goes, "Y'all just don't understand. I'm an outlaw." And I was like, "You're sitting in a whole room full You're sitting in a whole room full of people who hate rules, right? Like they do not want to follow any of them." So yeah, we do understand, but yeah, I don't know. But what about you, Kyle?
A lot of the things we hear in here are recycled that I've heard some version before, but I've never heard what Travis was saying. That you can tell how grateful I am for something about the way I treat it, and I got to think on that. I appreciate when I do hear a snippet that I haven't heard before, and Matt, you were saying that, talking about being grateful for the bad stuff. I hear people all the time in meetings say, "I'm grateful I'm an alcoholic." I'm not there yet. Maybe I will be. I would prefer to have this positive growth and learning these life lessons and without having all the wreckage of the past. So, but I think that ties into what Travis was sharing is that, being grateful for the bad things that happen. I don't think that I'm necessarily grateful that something bad happened. I'm grateful that I survived it, made it through it, and learned something from it. And if I can just start there, then I think that will grow into gratitude for my life as a whole, the journey that got me here, and maybe I can find some gratitude in the fact that I'm wired wrong. I think I talked last week about my counselor at Palmetto, Frank, and he's big on gratitude. And so that was a real base for my recovery, and it's not hard for me to find that. Just to be here, just to be alive, just to be a father. That's the basis of most of what I do in a day. And when I'm in a funk, nothing can get me out of a funk like just a little bit of gratitude.
Sure.
It can turn my day around, and I use it often. I try to find gratitude often.
I remember the first time in early recovery, we're in Delhi, and someone was like, "Yeah, I'm a grateful alcoholic," and I remember thinking, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
yeah,
I still think that.
I was like, "Why would he say that?"
But it goes back to, we do the third step prayer, and we pray about God's will for us rather than our will, and we want to be focused on that. But, everybody sitting in here has taken something that's bad and has turned it into something that helps other people. And I can see where people say I'm a grateful alcoholic. It's always funny to me to be around, because we know us, we can talk to each other that outside people are like, we need to lock them all up, but we don't. We have a different, and I'm grateful that I'm able to talk with people nowadays that are trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of times where I'm in the middle of a conversation with somebody and I go, man, I'm so glad that happened. Like now I can, and maybe can shed some light on something for somebody, and maybe it wasn't the greatest thing in the world when it happened, but something came out of it. So,
well, and that's growth in and of itself, man. The way I see it for me is it's, when something good happens to me, my initial instinct is I don't deserve that because of all these bad things I've done. Mm-hmm. And so, I can go to that and think that I don't deserve it. Well, that's not necessarily true. And it gets me to this, working this program and getting through these steps to see that I can leave the guilt and shame of that stuff. I can acknowledge that I did all these things, but it doesn't mean that I'm not a child of my higher power that deserves, good things. We all do. So, that's a growing process. It's getting out of that. I don't deserve good things, to being grateful for anything.
Yeah. And that too is giving ourselves a little bit of grace on some things, in this journey, because, it is a journey, and not one of us, alcoholic or not alcoholics, nobody's perfect. And, I think, we talked about expectations on the last episode. to go hand in hand with that, we have to give ourselves a little grace here and go, okay, I've restarted life basically to get sober and to figure this out, and it's gonna take time to do that, and I'm not gonna do it perfectly. And I know with a lot of newer folks, they're like, oh, well, I just didn't check this list off of stuff that I should be knocking out. I backed up a little bit. Well, you didn't drink and use, and it won't end up being a mistake if you learn from it, and we can build on it, but it's always just an attitude change of things. But
Agreed. And I think that's why like my sponsor started me with that kind of stuff, because I wasn't grateful for the small things. The big things, I mean, like, of course, yeah. I mean, that new car is great, but it wasn't like the small things, and being grateful for that, and, that growing over time. Because like you were saying, like I said, or you said, like a grateful alcoholic, hell no. But that took years for me to realize, damn, I am grateful. Look at what I've learned. Look who I've become.
Your regular average person's not going to know that. They're not. Most people don't take a self inventory. I realize that, right?
Well, yeah.
Even people who have their shit together are probably not taking a self.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the other thing too. We get out and we do now have a way to live, but that don't mean everybody else does. You know, and like I'm around folks that are just normal. I call them normal people. They're not like us, and I'm going, good night, like. The self-absorbed, yeah, and I mean that's their deal, and it's not me. I'm not going to preach to them, but yeah, we forget sometimes the rest of the world doesn't have a way to try to correct their behavior, or some of them, and yeah, we have to navigate all that,
Think about this. I am a grateful recovering alcoholic, and it did take some time for me to even. The worst day of my life was the day I had to walk into AA. I mean, like, I have drank myself into the freaking room. Don't get there. I was thinking about killing myself, but I'm in AA now amongst all these losers. and that was actually the worst and best day of my entire life. But I didn't wake up every morning and pray to God every day before I did that, before I got to AA. I didn't do that. I woke up every morning and just said, hey, let's see what the day's got, and did whatever I wanted to do. And now, at least, I get up every morning and I talk to God. I talk to something bigger than me, about, hey, I'm probably going to need your help again today. I didn't do that before. I would imagine, and I'm not, but most people that I know don't do that. People that I know out there in the real world, the people who don't struggle, so there's a lot of little life lessons, sometimes we just have to accept we're not getting what we want, Can you imagine if you got disappointed every time you lost the lottery?
Yeah. Twice a week.
Well, that would just, just think about it. I mean, we talked about that on the last episode, but we learn in AA how to find some form of acceptance. We learn how to, talk to or find a higher power. And we learn how to turn our will and our life over to that higher power. We learn so much.
It takes that instant result gratification thing away, where it's like, I got up and went to work today. I should be the manager of the company by the end of the day. No. And we learn to pause in that and go, let God handle this, and I just do what I'm supposed to do. And it's usually not the result we think it's going to be, but it usually works out better,
Where do you think that comes from? You saying the worst day of your life was the day you walked into AA? Because I experienced that. My dad in college, my dad sent me to Brentwood for 7 days after DWI. I spent September 11th, 2001. Where were you when the world
was in Brentwood.
I was at Brentwood. We watched for like 10 seconds. And they were like, all right, group time, turn the TV
Everybody
off.
started panicking.
Yeah. So, but I remember.
Meds.
Where next?
Where's my Xanax?
I remember being there, and I was trying to convince the hospital staff that I didn't have a drinking problem. I had a depression problem, or that I had a mental disorder. And I went through this. I think I talked last week about my friend's son who just checked into treatment in Arkansas, and his mother was saying the same thing. We need a treatment center that does mental health as well. Well, I wanted to be crazy. I didn't want to be drunk. I didn't want to be a drunk. I wanted to be crazy. And I always thought that might have been a social stigma, that I was worried about having to be branded an alcoholic. But looking back on it, I think it's just because I wanted to drink.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be crazy and drunk than sober and sane.
I get it.
If that makes any sense. And
We
when
all
you
agree.
When you said that, it just that all. So I don't know that it is a social stigma. In fact, I think socially, being sober, as I see it, and I may be seeing it through a different lens, is becoming almost cool. You know, in some places, people are wearing their sobriety in a way that that they're proud of, that you didn't see, 10, 20 years ago. So that just brought back something in me that when you were sharing about, the worst day of your life being when you came in AA. Now I'm grateful that I'm here, certainly.
It's
And
worst day and best day.
Yeah.
I remember telling everybody, well, I'm on medicine, and when I drink, the alcohol mixes with the medicine and makes me do these crazy shit. But what I failed to think myself was, I don't have to drink. If I just took the drink away, I took my excuse away.
That never occurred.
Nobody
Well,
ever,
and that was mine. The
Nobody-
panic attacks. I mean,
nobody
I
ever
had to have
thought
the
about
Xanax
that.
and the beer and everything else and it's crazy. I haven't had one panic attack since I've gotten sober.
yeah.
I can't tell you how much gratitude I have for that. Because every
And-
day was like, I think I'm going to die today.
So going back to what you said, my last drink resulted in me basically wanting to kill myself and about to go through with the act. Okay. And I thought to myself that day, I've got to have some form of mental illness. I've got to be crazy. Something is wrong with me. Something's going on in my head. I don't think about dying ever. And today I'm thinking about really going through with this. But, truth is, I never gave sobriety even, just no alcohol. I never gave it a chance. I can tell you now, 12 years later, almost 13 years later, I don't take anything for mental illness. I don't have a therapist. I don't, I'm still an alcoholic, but I'm not crazy. I don't want to I don't want to say, some people have legitimate mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Never going to knock that. I'm not a doctor. I'm talking about me. And now that I've given some no alcohol time to Mike, I realize that a lot of that was brought on by the alcohol, especially the
Absolutely.
paranoia.
Sure, and I don't want to discount mental illness at all. I just, for me, maybe I was mentally ill, or maybe I could have been mentally ill. But let's take the alcohol and drugs away for a little while,
See
and
what
then
happens.
and then reassess.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Same. That is exactly what happened to me.
And that's kind of what I recommended to this friend. It's like, they treat mental illness. Let's start with the alcohol.
I think a lot of Jill probably knows this better than me, but I think a lot of the treatment centers now are geared with mental.
Yeah, co-occurring.
the dual co-occurring. That was what I was looking for. Yeah. So, it's the treatment centers nowadays are awesome. I mean, they just they I don't want to say specialize, but pretty much anything going on within reason, they can handle it.
Well, if you think about it, if we're doing drugs and drinking, it's depleting our dopamine, all our feel-good hormones.
Now, the way they explained it to me in rehab or whatever, what I went to, is that your body basically quits making those because you're putting synthetic.
Exactly.
And then, so of course you're going to be depressed when you quit drinking because you
Exactly.
ain't got nothing going on in your brain
Well,
to make you feel good.
And part of like post-acute withdrawals, depression, anxiety, or insomnia, those things are some of the biggest things that are going to happen coming off of substances after the acute withdrawals. So it just goes kind of hand in hand. It's weird. I think about my life before I went into drugs and alcohol. I was very, 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 very happy. And not that I'm not happy, but I just didn't come out the same. I do have to take a medication for depression, and I'm all for it. It works for me. But like I said, I altered some serious chemistry in my head. And happiness is something that I really have to work on. I mean, my happiness is key to how many meetings I make in a week. That's why I go to so many meetings. It's not that I'm trying to, I'm fighting to be sober, but it's good for my emotional health. And I don't know, it just alters your brain chemistry in a big way.
Sure.
And it starts to grow back too. I mean, you start to once that dopamine or whatever, you know, I don't know all the brain stuff, but once this stuff starts to come back and your body starts making it, you know, maybe that's why we notice all these miracles so early on. You know, all these small great things to be great. You know, and then I guess after you get back in a normal humdrum, you got to start having meetings on gratitude to remind yourself about gratitude.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. We get so used to the way our life was, and then we stop drinking and start noticing these things. It's going like going from the dark to the light. You know, it's a drastic change, and then we stay in the light for a while, and they're like, "Oh, it's not so bright anymore."
Yeah. And I think that like practicing gratitude was important for my emotional health because in my mind, like back before, I'd had a tendency to stay in the doom and gloom, like I've said before, and the self-pity. And one way to get out of that is with gratitude. And it's like that with a lot of people that suffer from mental illness. I mean, like I had to change my way of thinking. That was the huge problem. That was the problem because I will focus on all the negative. I will, focus on all the bullshit and not focus on all the beautiful things that are happening in my life. And like I said, I think that's key to a lot of people's early sobriety, especially when hopefully, they're taught that to get out of that headspace, because I can't help but think when you're being stripped of all the things that you've been putting in your body to substitute whatever endorphin, serotonin, dopamine, all that kind of stuff, like how can I change that organically?
And this is goes back earlier to talking about being grateful and the things we've done before, but I have kids that saw me in addiction really bad, my older kids, and they dealt with that and that type thing. My youngest daughter, she was so young when I went to treatment, she's never seen me really high or drunk or any of that stuff. And roll on a few years, I was going to meetings and, she's little and what are you doing? So she's in the last few years, I started bringing her to the club and she knows everybody and other folks do that with their kids too. And it's great. It's funny though, she's grown up in there and she listens to some of that stuff that's said. And so we're walking through Walmart the other day, or it was about a year ago. We're walking through Walmart and she was like 6. And a lady that's in sober living, that was one of the groups that comes into our club to go to meetings, is in there pushing a buggy. And she says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "Hey, good to see you." And I've got Andy, my little girl, with me, and just talked to her for a couple seconds and went on down the road. And we're walking down the aisle and Andy looks at me and she goes, "Who was that, Dad?" And I said, "That was just a friend of mine." And she said, "Is that one of those people that can not have one drink, because if they take one drink, they won't be able to stop and they'll keep it." And I was like, yeah, something like that. I'm like, "You're listening too much," So, but I'm like, but it hit me. I was like, "Hey man, she's learning things, by sitting in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting at 6 years old, and I think it's also with her, it's taken that. I think people have a stigma about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think when they actually get involved in it and they're around it, man, it's the best people on the planet, man. That's my people. You know?
Growing up, that was the punishment, that Grandpa got for not drinking and driving, or somebody in your family got you. They went to that. It wasn't. Nobody thought of it as a lifestyle. Obviously, even back then it was, because there's people that have been sober, 45 years, and nowadays that I go to meetings with that all of these things I heard 35 years ago are obviously just the way we think. That we didn't think of this being a lifestyle or a place people go every day, or even just a way of living, which is actually just the right way of living. I went to church, I don't know, the first 7 years of my life, Pentecostal church, pretty hardcore, pretty ingrained in the faith. And I don't, for some reason, didn't pick up the basics that you pick up from doing the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is honesty, integrity, brotherly love,
But I think AA lays that out in such black and white, simple way
Plus,
to
you've
follow
messed
it.
all that shit up. You know, when I was 7 years old, I hadn't quite screwed everything up yet.
That's true.
I get a little hindsight going on whenever I get to AA, and I get to go back through all the stuff I should have picked up on to be a better human being.
Yeah, I grew up in church. My dad was a preacher. We were there every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Tuesday when the guy cut the grass, whatever it was, we were there. And none of that stuff, I didn't take it into my life and use it. And now I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they just had, this is the way it's done, and it's laid out in front of you, very simple. And yeah, a lot of that, it goes back to what I was raised to do, but it's just put a different way. So, I don't know why. I'm like Mike. I don't know why it didn't sink in. I kind of had a bad attitude about it. I guess because being there all the time, I was like, I'm not doing this. When I get a choice, I'm never coming back here. So,
Isn't that funny?
yeah,
Resentment, number one offender, man.
yeah, I know, right?
I remember thinking that.
I just, I grew up, and that's all I heard. Don't drink, don't run around with girls till you're married. Don't do this, don't do that. And I was like, that's all the fun stuff. Like this stuff is fun. What are these people talking about? Well, I know now, but yeah, I was a
Don't do
kid.
it
I was
too
like,
much.
yeah, I mean, and I asked my dad, I said, did you drink when you were younger? And my dad's like, I've never had a drop of alcohol. He never has to this day.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, then how can you tell me not to do it? I mean, you can't tell me that. And
Voila.
yeah, and voila. So he may have been right. The old man was right about that one. But
Dum, dum, dum.
but our family, my dad, no drinking at all, but we have alcohol issues with the people that did use it in his, my relatives. So it's definitely run through the family, and just with him not doing it, it hadn't been an issue. But yeah. Yeah, but I'm pretty grateful about Andy. She's kind of grown up in the club, and along with a lot of other people's kids, they come up there and hang out, and there's a lot worse places to hang out. That's for sure.
Okay, so let's do a social experiment.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. Let's go around the table and name the thing we're most grateful for and why. Is that stupid?
no, go ahead, Matt. You go first.
That was where we were going. See, I already knew that was going to happen. You hear the sound of the bones crunching, and Mike just threw me under the bus. So, let me think. The most grateful.
Yeah, the one thing you're the most grateful for, and why?
I'll be honest, and sounds generic, but it's not, because it all stops and starts with this. But sobriety is what I'm most grateful for, because all the other cool stuff that happens and the cool people I met, I would not have met them without being sober. I'd be dead or in jail. I was ready to kill myself when I came in here. I found out you can't commit suicide by nunchucks. It takes a long time to do that.
me about
Me and
it.
Mike have
Nunchucks.
researched it.
We haven't talked about nunchucks in 9 months.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a tough way to die.
That was my choice of how I was going to go out in this world's nunchuck.
Mike decided nunchucks.
Apparently, the chain wasn't long enough.
Took him 6 months to kill himself.
Between
but,
the two chucks.
So Mike, what about you?
I'm gonna have to go with my recovery. That's the one thing I think about every day. It's really the only thing I actually have done consistently in my life for any. I've had the same job for many, many, many years, but different jobs within a job. But my recovery is probably the only thing I'm really committed to. It's the only thing I'm definitely gonna do every day when I get up. So everything else is kind of hit or miss. I was telling a story last week how I was driving back here to Shreveport from Fort Worth, and I saw an ad on my phone, and I turned around. I didn't even go through with the driving. I went back to Fort Worth to buy something, and my recovery is something I do every day. But without it, I would have nothing. I mean, I've proven that. But that's the one thing. If you said list the top 5.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're probably all going to say the same thing. Well, it's what I'm grateful for too, my sobriety. I wouldn't be here. I know that for a fact, and everything that I have in my life now is due to the fact that I got sober.
And that goes back. We just talked on this last episode before you guys say what y'all got, but you tell these new guys that you're working with, just don't drink. just don't drink today. Don't drink. Don't drink for this hour, this half a day, whatever it might be, because that's where you get to is I'm grateful that I didn't, that's Mike said, that's the one thing he's done consistently, and myself as well. And now I look back and go, yeah, you tough through some of that stuff. Look how good it is now.
Well, I'll tell you what, it wouldn't have been that in the first couple of years of my sobriety. It would not have been.
What would it have been?
God, I don't know. Probably nothing.
Nirvana or something like that?
It took a while to be grateful, for that.
I didn't have a Subaru.
The Billie Jean King Subaru.
I would have struggled. I'd probably been like, my arms.
I'm attached to them.
Kyle, what about you?
I'm the same thing in a sense. I'm grateful for second chance at life, and really that segues into my kids. I am just so incredibly grateful to have two wonderful young men and be a real presence in their lives. And I know not all of us get sober in time to be there for those formative years for our children. And God saw it fit for me to be there, and I think just in time, in His time. So, I'm incredibly grateful to be a dad. It's my greatest accomplishment. At the end of the day, it's my reason for being on this rock. And I just couldn't be more proud of them and being able to teach them some life lessons that I'm learning in here about how to be just better men, treat people better, behave in a way that's how God wants them to behave, treat people with respect, love on people, and just be good guys. So
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I like what everybody said. But if I had to say what I'm most grateful for, and sobriety leads into this, is my relationship with my higher power.
Yeah.
My relationship with God. Because it took all the bad things that we were talking about, being grateful for the bad things. It took me to go to the bottom with my addiction to get to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Alcoholics Anonymous, through the 12 steps, led me to have a relationship with my higher power. And as many times as I've tried to disqualify myself for God's love, I just haven't been able to accomplish that. No matter what I do, no matter what's going on, God is always there, and He always loves me. Sometimes I question His judgment, but then again, I have to remind myself, my thinking got me here. And if I just trust in that relationship, it's all going to work out for what's best for everybody involved. So that's what I'm most grateful for, is my relationship with my higher power.
That makes sense. I mean, I feel like I included, when I say sobriety, everything.
It's hard to separate the two, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of my sobriety is my higher power. And that's really cool that I have that now. I'm really grateful for that, because I was just, my higher power was, self will run riot. It was me. It was just chaos.
I love that look on your face, just thinking back over that.
God, I was just pitiful, God bless.
Man, look, I'll tell you what, if you could be grateful driving down the road, I knew things were changing. That raggedy car I had with no windows and rain's blowing in there. If you can drive down the road and almost laugh how big of a legend am I right now?
At some point, it is comical, Matt.
It was. I had fun with it, dude. I mean, and nobody would ride with me at all. They're like, we'll walk. I'm like, okay, I'll see you there.
We'll walk.
That car was
But it's
rough.
raining.
Yeah.
We'll walk.
Yeah.
have
We'll
windows
take the
anyway.
bus, we're going to get a bus pass. That car was, do you remember that? You were around then.
I don't remember it. You probably kept it hidden.
And here's
Parked
what's
around the
funny,
corner.
man. I go out there now to where I park at the Koala Club, and I've always parked there, and I still think about that car being parked in that parking space sometimes. And I'm like, my kids called it the Gray Goose, man. That car was, it was horrible.
Isn't it weird how we even park in the same spots a lot of times at the?
Yeah.
And then we don't get our parking spot at the club. We get get all out of whack.
Or our seats in the meeting.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, the unassigned seat. They go in. You know, my very first meeting, I sat in a guy named Woodrow's chair.
Oh,
And he just happened to not be there that day. Had he been there, he wouldn't have said a word to me. But, you know, I come to know over the next few years until he passed that was his chair. And I think now, you know, some family members sit there whenever
Yeah,
they come
yeah.
in. So, you know, Travis mentioned something that I don't want to short side, and that was a lot of folks don't realize that we work these steps in order to get closer to God. And a lot of folks don't. I guess maybe it seems hocus pocus to people. Come in, work,
oh yeah.
work the steps. All of a sudden, this gonna happen, that gonna happen, and all this other stuff. But what we're really doing is kind of cleaning house to let God in, and we're doing those steps to build a relationship with something bigger than ourselves. And I, you know, it took me a long time to pick up on that. It took me a long time in recovery to pick up on the fact that these steps up here are designed, number one, to humble me. Number two, to get me closer to God and understand that I'm not Him, that I'm just a regular old Joe, and then to help people. You know, that's you know, basic in a nutshell. You know, trust God, clean house, help others, kind of thing. But most people don't think about that. You know, so in a way, though I'm grateful for those steps. You know, because there really is a step for everything, and I know that sounds. Well, I used to think that was complete bullshit. I did. I used to think that is complete bullshit. But then when you have a real sponsor and you sit there and you talk to them and, you know, you say, this is what's going on, and they bring up step 6, you know, and possibly it could be an ego problem you have.
Can't say what.
You know, it's had nothing to do with my ego. You know, of course it did, you know. So, but that is, you know, the purpose of the steps. I really, you know, grateful for those steps. And of course, you know, without my recovery, I wouldn't have had a relationship with God. And without a relationship with God, I wouldn't have had my recovery. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I was talking to a guy the other day at work, and he asked me, you know, where do you put the important things in life? You know, he goes, for him, it's God, family, work, or, you know, whatever his little list. And I was like, well, mine's going to be God, my sobriety, probably family, work. I don't know. I don't show much of the family thing, you know, out there as I do. I go to work more than I do family events, but he was telling me, and then we got later on that day, we were talking with someone above us both, and he was talking about his importance of his life. Just by chance, this conversation happened, right? And he was talking about he always puts his, you know, God first, family second, work third, and he, you know, kind of put it in perspective that no matter what it is, you know, I'm different because my recovery has to fall in that line, but it's right there, you know, it's right up there with it. So, good social experiment.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I just wish I could figure out the word you used that blew my mind. Cognitive? Was it cognitive? Is that a word?
Yeah, of course.
What does it mean?
Thought. Cognition.
Don't look
don't
at me,
ring any
Mike.
Go look over at Matt for some guidance.
Yeah, we're both got that 1,000-yard stare.
Well, whenever Jill starts talking about the brain and the psychotic part of her, not her brain,
The psychotic.
the psychosis, whatever it is, she always says a word, and once she says that word, it's like my brain shuts down, and I can't think of what it is.
We'll have to go back and listen to
Jill
the
says a
podcast.
lot of big words, though. I just nod like I know what she's talking about. and I
Yeah,
just go
that's
on.
what everybody
Yeah.
her work does too.
You know,
She worked with prisoners, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they probably all sit there going, yeah.
Well, I can guarantee. I mean, like, do you remember what we thought in the very beginning when someone was talking this shit to us?
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
mean by saying shit is shit. I was like, man, this person's so full of shit. They don't know what they're talking
I
about.
remember sitting there, somebody like just out of the blue saying like a step. They'll be talking about, and what we really need to do is a step 7, because then I'm like, who knows what step 7 is in the middle of a speech? what is wrong with these people? And I go back to what I said earlier. 10 minutes ago, you were digging around in the carpet for a pill you just threw up. And now you're preaching about a step 7? How do you know what's... And you ever notice, if you look out in the audience when you're at a meeting, you'll see people look up at the board whenever somebody brings up, I really need to think about step 5 over. People be like, oh, what's step 5?
I still do that.
I do it too.
I still do that.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not as if I don't know them all in my head.
Yeah. I wonder why. I wonder why you still do that.
I still do that with.
Must be something cognitive. Because I got to use that word in a sentence.
That's what happens when you start eating zucchini and light wheat bread or whatever you
there's
said.
Hummus and zucchini.
You eat the hummus, you get cognitive, dude.
That's all really good stuff. Y'all are missing out.
Soaked in bacon grease.
No. Olive oil, okay?
Oh,
Organic olive oil.
brought to you by the Subaru Ferry. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it's great for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And there's no bacon on it.
None.
I went to one of those vegan restaurants and
Do they have those?
yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
The whole restaurant's vegan?
Yes.
Yes, they're fabulous.
The best part about it, the hippie chick waitresses. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into more details. The only good part. But I'm in there with some people that are vegan. I'm looking on the menu. I don't recognize any of this stuff. And I see BLT. And I went, I know what that is. I'll eat that. So the girl comes out and I'm like, I want a BLT. And I was like, be sure the bacon is on this thing. And she goes, oh, well, it's not bacon. And I was like, what is it? And she said, it's coconut. It's colored like bacon. And I went, that's horrible. And that's also a CLT, not a BLT. So the vegan, the spelling goes out the window when you start doing all those vegetables,
It's actually really good.
But
You just have to know
it's
how to
not.
cook
I
it.
ate it and I
Oh.
did not like it at all. It's terrible.
Yeah, I could have told you not to eat that.
It was at well, I better not say the name of the business, but it's over there.
There's only
You sit outside on lawn chairs. Yeah, they don't even have.
Well, if it's here, I doubt you were their first redneck experience. They
Ah,
probably
they
used to do
didn't
it with guys like you.
They have the redneck experience.
What I like, what I like is all the other people are like, this is so good. And I'm like, this is the worst food I've ever eaten. Like, y'all are brainwashed. What
having
is
to pay
wrong
for
with
this?
y'all?
lawn chairs. Okay, we're gonna have to talk afterwards.
Yeah, it was plastic chairs, and the chicks were wearing like overalls or little tank top things. That was the best part about the whole restaurant was the
In
two waitresses.
Bossier?
No, in Shreveport, Highland area. Oh, now you know what I'm talking about. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
And that's an oxymoron, the name of the place, because it's not. You're not going to get that there. So
I do not support.
I'm just surprised Matt knew
This
what
message.
the word oxymoron meant.
well, I know moron. Knew half of it. So
That part I get.
okay. All right. Fair enough.
Well, we've ran out of time. Kyle, thank you for coming by. Sure. Travis,
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
you from being here.
Checks in the mail, guys. Checks in the mail.
If you guys, if you want to get a hold of us out there in the audience, it's we have a phone number, voicemail phone number. It's area code 817-988-2530. You can call, leave us a voicemail. We also have an email address. It's B&G Bossier, BOSSIER @gmail.com. We have listeners in the United States, Ireland, United Kingdom, Taiwan, Canada, Bulgaria, Lesotho, don't know what that is yet, Australia, Denmark, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Colombia, the Netherlands, and Mexico. We do 42% of our have 42% of our listeners on Apple Podcast and 52.1 on Spotify. If you want to hear us on Apple Podcast, you can go to the Apple app, a podcast app on an Apple device. Swipe down in the search, hit Grouch and the Brainstorm. Will pop up. Click follow, and every time we release an episode, it'll pop up on your phone like it did on mine. See, Jill? So, from all of us here in Bossier City, Louisiana, this has been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.